Yeah, it felt great to start. Finally be out there for the first play. Means a lot. Definitely helps my confidence. I know the receivers had confidence in me, and as regards to that play, I mean, I told him I was going to give him the ball this game, and did just that. Let him go make a play. You know, I didn't see how he got out of it or anything, but you know, he did his job that play.
Yeah, Nick, your thoughts on Trey Knox and Traylon Burks, who went to those guys, I think, 15 combined times today. Just your thoughts on their play?
Yeah, I told them before the season, you know, the SEC doesn't care how old you are. There's no age restriction in the SEC. So it doesn't matter if they're freshmen. They can go out there and make plays just like everybody else can. And I trust them. They go up and they get the ball. And I like doing that. So I like doing that.
It's good. Based on the way last year's game went, they came back on you. And for them to tie you late and for y'all to push through and win it in the fourth quarter, what did that mean? And can you also talk about the Kinsey touchdown on the second play, how you responded after that?
I mean, I feel like I had a pep talk with the defense at the end of the 22 score, and I just feel like it's time to grow up. Too many excuses for a lot of players. I mean, we all played while we was younger. I appreciate those guys. Those guys responded to me. But, you know, yeah, this is a big jump from last year, just looking at for us having this win and this momentum going into next week. And I think the Kinsey play on the second play was just a hit and miss play. You know, I think with the front, we really don't know what happened. We'll have to see tomorrow when we get in the film room. But we made the adjustments, and I mean, that's a pretty good back. They have pretty good, decent running backs back there. And they made some plays on us. So.
CJ, along those lines, you've been here long enough, you've seen the scenario play out a lot. All of a sudden it's 34-34 in the fourth quarter. What were you thinking then, and what was different about the way this one played out?
Man, a lot of us know, like the old Hogs, we didn't know how to respond. We all just got down, the energy lowered, got more low, and then this year is just completely different. We started getting a little bit last year, just didn't quite overcome, you know, response and how we respond to failure. And then, so this year, you know, I just think we've all really came together as a team, defense and offense. I see offensive players going over to defense and talking to them, and then I see defense players going over to offense. It's just everybody's coming together, and that's what we need. That's what the team needs, and that's what led us to a victory today.
This has its own magic.
Backfield and spread out wide, and then with a hand in the ground, there's not a lot that we can't do. We feel like we can do a lot, stretch the field vertically, and then spread it wide with the speed of our backs and how we can get around people. And so our offense.
Welcome in. It's our Tuesday edition of On the Hill with Pat Jenkins Sports Talk Radio, as we're here from 1 to 2 p.m. To let you know all Arkansas, but we're going to we got to take a caravan. We got a couple games of the week, but there's a big one going to be taking place in C-Stat, as Auburn will be traveling to College Station to take on the Texas A&M Aggies. Big matchup in the SEC. And we have Jeff Tarpley of 247 Sports. He covers the Aggies, and he'll be on in the 215 segment. And then following that up, there's another big one in the SEC, and it's a national game as well, as Georgia will be hosting between the hedges the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. And we're going to catch up with Jake Roos of UGAsports.com. We're going to get his take on this big upcoming matchup on Saturday night. But I want to go over real quick before we get this thing rolling, where the bus is getting all filled up and we're about to take our trip. I want to go over to my co-host, Demetrius Johnson, and say, what's up, my man? It's a pretty good little Tuesday, don't you think? And you told me that I look like an Auburn. And, the listeners and viewers, he tells me me wearing orange, I'm looking like an Auburn fan.
Yeah, today's going good. We had a little bird problem earlier.
Hey, I'm not a bird man. I'm sorry, I'm not dealing with birds.
So my day is a little topsy-turvy right now. But
matter of fact, I think you might have got that on some video. And now that I think about it. No, we don't need to ever let that get out. That could be some incriminating evidence. But Demetrius, Ty Clary, it was announced yesterday, was on the college football offensive team for his blocking percentage this weekend and all the NCAA college football games. What does that say about Clary, Ty? Because Ty's a young man that had just over the spring been moved to center. I mean, this is the guy who walked on at the University of Arkansas, was thrust into playing. Brett Bielema's final year before he was let go, and then last year. So Ty's had to learn, and experience a lot on the fly. I mean, how big is this for Ty Clary, and really in particular the offensive line? Because when you watch number 66, he's starting to become somewhat of a vocal leader for that football team.
I think it's huge. Most people look at that center being the anchor, being that, kind of captain of the offensive line. So I think it's great that he got a chance to come in at a young age and really contribute to the team last year. Because when you see Ty, he's such I hate to put it like this, he's nice. You know what I'm saying? He's a nice guy. He doesn't look very aggressive, but when he gets those pads on, he becomes a whole different type of player.
Yeah, he's from Fayetteville High. So shout out PDP. Also, I think Cheyenne O'Grady was part of that offensive team. So it's all about the PDP, the Bulldogs, don't you think? We're repping out.
Nah, you repping out. I'm not a purple dog.
Well, see, that's what I'm saying. I'm going to get you converted on. But I tell you what, we're going to step away. We caught up with, I believe we have assistant coach, defensive coordinator John Chavis. He's going to talk about his defense from this past weekend and much, much more. And then next up, Jeff Tarpley of 247 Sports, covering the Aggies. He's up next. The bus is ready. D's ready. Let's go. It's On the Hill with Pat Jenkins on KDSJ 479. Let's get it.
We're going to go win football game. And they did it in the fourth quarter. And, really, really excited about that. And I think we could have, like I said, we could have played better. Colorado State, had a good game plan. They played hard. They were well coached. Got a lot of respect for their coaching staff. Coach Bobo, I played against, many times, and he's always, had his teams prepared. But I'm excited about the way our young men responded in the fourth quarter. That was the biggest thing.
Yeah, Chief, Hayden Henry had a really good game. What do you think of his game? Just maybe you speak to him and how he's developed as a player.
Well, I think we had several people that made really, really good plays, and I've been high on Hayden ever since I've been here. Obviously, he was a starter for us when we played three linebackers last year. He's got the ability to play either the strong side or the weak side, and he is a tough, hard-nosed, physical football player, and that's what you look for. That's what you look for, and he's going to lay it on the line. He's that kind of guy. He loves playing the game, and we got a bunch of guys like that. But we need to keep recruiting a lot more. We need to be about 33 strong on defense with that kind of attitude and that kind of toughness.
It seems like his younger and older brother were both more, they're like high school American tight ends. Hayden maybe a good high school player, not, great All-American or whatever. He seems like he, more than holds his own.
I don't want to compare him because I don't know, anything, I wouldn't compare him anyway. But I do know this, I'll take Hayden Henry every day in anything.
Chief, could you speak to the play of your ends? Looks like Colorado State wanted to get to the end a little bit, and then Jamario Bell, you get him back this week. What's his status?
Well, like I said, Coach will always speak on that. He will speak on that, and yeah, we did. There was a couple of times that we didn't make the adjustment. We had checked the coverage, and once we checked the coverage, we're in a bump scheme, and we didn't get bumped. And they made a five-man surface a couple of times on us, and we knew that and worked on it. We didn't get bumped enough, and it was alignment. But again, that goes back to coaching.
Welcome back. It's On the Hill with Pat Jenkins, Sports Talk Radio. And real quick, want to give a shout out to our sponsors, or this would not be possible: Lindsay and Associates, Locomotion, Corey Beck's Custom Painting, and also to KDK's Chicken. But we like to talk about the SEC. We talk Arkansas, but there's more to the SEC than just the Razorbacks. So we like to go around and pick a couple games of the week, and there's none bigger in the SEC than what's going to be taking place in CSTAT. That's College Station, when the Auburn Tigers travel down to take on the Texas A&M Aggies. And we thought we'd bring on a good buddy of ours that knows quite a bit about the Aggies. 247 Sports, Jeff Tarpley. Jeff, welcome to On the Hill, my man.
Guys, how are you doing today?
Doing real good, real good. Let's get off into this big matchup, Jeff. Right before we came on the air, my big key and what I'm going to be looking at, and I think a lot of viewers that are going to be watching, is the matchup of the offensive line, A&M's offensive line versus the big studded defensive line of Auburn. Talk about that matchup, and what are some other keys, Jeff, when you enter the stadium on Saturday that will be front and center in your mind?
The one thing that jumps out at me is last year A&M did a really good job of blocking Auburn in the run game, but they were a different team in terms of the running game last year. They blocked a lot of counter, a lot of power. They pulled center Eric Coy, who's now starting for the New Orleans Saints. They had a couple of tight ends, and they were able to generate a lot of firepower on the edge. And they also had Travion Williams, who's also in the league now, and he was a guy who would get you a couple of yards after contact.
Right.
This year, it's a little bit different. They've got a freshman running back in Isaiah Spiller. Deshaun Corbin, who was starting, is gone for the year. But Spiller is a very good football player. Great vision, able to find gaps on blocking, make quick cuts up into the hole. He's probably an upgrade over Corbin in that regard. But A&M's offensive line this year, they struggled in terms of allowing more penetration. The backs and tight ends hadn't been as proficient in terms of pass protection, picking up blitzers. They were better at that last weekend against Lamar.
Right.
They've got to be able to they've got to continue to improve in that regard. But A&M's now more of an inside zone team this year. That plays Spiller's strength. The only thing is that you got those big guys on the interior, Derek Brown and Nick Coe. And so you're going to have to be able to at least stalemate those guys and allow Spiller to read the block and cut out from behind those blocks. And that offensive line has its work cut out for it this weekend, no question.
Jeff, I had a chance to get a chance to meet with junior quarterback Kellen Mond, a young man, I think, going into year 3, a lot of expectations for this quarterback there at A&M. Talk about, how important is it for Kellen to be able to, have a little, some time to where he can make those very important third down throws, and some even on first down. I mean, it's really key because he also too, there's some pretty good corner backs for the Auburn Tigers coming in under Coach Steele and staff.
Yeah, Auburn has a lot of speed on the back end. They're pretty good at rushing the passer. What Mon has to do, he has a tendency to throw high sometimes early in games. His footwork's a little off. He doesn't necessarily rotate through his hips and his shoulder like he should, and so the ball kind of has a tendency to sail. I think people kind of remember those early on before he settles down.
Right.
The problem has been protection. Again, they've got new tight ends, new backs, and so those guys haven't been able to pick up the blitz as well as Travion Williams, Jay Sternberger, Trevor Wood did last year that allowed Mond a little bit more time in the pocket. Clemson, one of the things about the Clemson game, if you watch that game, Clemson threw a different defense than what the Aggies expected. Brent Venables went up to Iowa State during the spring, picked up on what Matt Campbell did, a 3-3-5 that uses 3 safeties across the top. And what that enabled Clemson to do was double the A&M receivers and also play deep and take away the deep ball. So as a result, Mond was forced to look short. His receiver, he misfired on throws. His receivers dropped some catchable passes. Then the backs and H-backs didn't exactly do their jobs in terms of picking up blitzing. He got blitzed. He got hit hard a few times. They're going to have to be able to do all that because Kevin Steele likes to send pressure. He's got guys who can play man in the secondary, so he'll send people from different angles at you and make you account for them. And so Mond's got to get A&M in the right protection. He did that against Lamar and Texas State, not so much against Clemson. So that's going to be the challenge, I think, even more so than the passing this weekend, is for him to get A&M in the right protections and make the right throws coming out of those protections. Him and the receivers being on the same page in order to be able to generate enough offense. I don't think this is going to be a high-scoring game on either end. So I think what they're going to have to do is hit some plays, get some yardage after the catch, take advantage of good field position on turnovers or special teams. And so from that standpoint, they're going to have to probably hit a few key third down throws. that goes back to Mom setting the protections and setting the table for success that could come from all that.
Talking with Jeff Tarpley of 247 Sports, covers Aggie football for us on the Hill with Pat Jenkins. I want to flip over to the defensive side of football, Jeff. Justin Matabuke, the big-time defensive lineman that you have, 6'3", 300-pounder. He's the anchor of that defense. Talk about what they have to do versus Bo Nix, the young true freshman, and they have some line questions also too on that Auburn offensive line. Talk about that matchup as well.
Well, Auburn's offensive line is not an overpowering bunch, and that's one of the things I noticed even going into last year's matchup. And they didn't really push A&M around at all last year. They count on that wing T type of concept that Gus Malzahn runs with a lot of misdirection and motion to cause what Jimbo Fisher terms eye violations. So you get your eyes are focused on one thing, and then something else hits you. And so what A&M's defense is going to have to do is be very careful about playing its assignments, playing its gaps. Auburn's less of an RPO team than they were last year. They've fallen back on the wing T stuff. But A&M's just going to have to play its assignments, and more importantly, everybody is going to have to trust the guys on either side of them to play their assignments, stay in their gaps, do what they're supposed to do. A&M's been very, very good at that so far. They played Clemson. They were solid against Clemson in the same type of matchup. Clemson's a big RPO team. Mike Elko is very, very good at defending RPOs because he can get his players to do what he wants them to do, needs them to do. And so for A&M, it's not going to be about getting upfield as much as it just is staying in position, having the safeties and corners come up and be physical against those perimeter screens, jam the blockers, take them out of the way so that they can they get one-on-one situations and make open field tackles. And it was very, very good at that against Clemson last year. They're going to have a return to form in that regard this season as well.
When you look at A&M, and really in particular the SEC West, Jeff, when we get to these conference games, it's about all three phases of the football game. You guys have a Ray Guy Award winner in Braden Mann. Talk about having that type of weapon in the kicking game, and how big of a factor do you think that when it boils down, when we look at both of these teams, because the team evenly matched, how big will the special teams and kicking game play in this ball game, in your opinion?
Jimbo Fisher is big on having great special teams. And with Braden Mann, he has the ability to flip the field all by himself just with a punting game. I wrote an article on this after the Clemson game. Everybody was talking about how well A&M's defense played. But outside of the one possession that Clemson had after a Bond fumbled, they started at A&M's 46-yard line. Clemson's average starting field position was its own 18-yard line. And if you want to look for a big reason why the Aggies allowed just 24 points, it's because Clemson had to go 82 yards on 8 of their, I think they had 10 possessions. One of them was a kneel down. One of them was the possession in A&M territory. They had 8 possessions where they started at their own 18-yard, an average of their own 18-yard line. That goes back to Mann, who, by the way, if you look at on the surface, you think he's having a terrible year because he averaged 51 yards a kick last year, and he's averaging just 45 this year. But he is having to place the ball a lot more this year inside the 20, and he's done a great job of that. And when he's really needed to boot the ball, he still managed to deliver key kicks for A&M. He had a kick against Clemson where I think he was kicking from the 17. Clemson's returner he outkicked Clemson's coverage. Clemson's returner had a minus 1 yard return because of A&M's coverage unit, and then they had an illegal block in the back because of that, because he outkicked the coverage. Well, A&M he punted A&M from its own 17 to Clemson. I think about Clemson's 20-yard line, and that came as the first, it came at a crucial point of the game. You can't underestimate the value of that kind of field position. And A&M special teams, on average, give it 5 to 10 yards. 5 yards possession on exchange of punts in the Clemson game. And when you do that, you're talking so many yards. I think overall, the difference between what Clemson had last year and that A&M game was I think anywhere between 10 and 15 yards possession on 9 or 10 possessions. So if you look at it that way, A&M gained 150 yards from what Clemson is used to via its special teams.
Got
If
about
you want to find, yeah,
got about a
if you
minute
wanna
left.
yeah. So,
I want you to give me your offensive player for this Saturday in CSTAT and your defensive player and the final score and outcome of this ball game versus the Auburn Tigers and Texas A&M Aggies.
I would say Isaiah Spiller is going to be the big key for the Aggies on offense. He's going to have to, the freshman's going to have to carry the ball 20, 25 times, and he's going to have to be big in pass pro. I think on defense, I would look to A&M corner Miles Jones, who had a very, very good game against Clemson, and he and Devion Renfro give A&M a very solid set of corners this year, as opposed to the type of play that they got last year. And in terms of the score, I just think it's going to be low scoring, and I think because A&M has a home field advantage, that they'll come on top by, say, 3-7, one score game.
Hey, Jeff, as always, man, we'll catch up next week because it's always the big one when the Hogs and Aggies get together for that Southwest Classic. We'll break that one down, but for now, thanks for taking time out on the Hill, my man.
No problem. Thank you.
That was Jeff Tarpley of 247 Sports, giving us the Aggies outlook as they will host Gus Malzahn and the Auburn Tigers in CSAT this Saturday. I believe kickoff is 2:30. I believe that's that kickoff time. I'll do some further research and come up with the exact time. But we're going to step away, get a real quick break. We caught up with some more players from post-game Colorado State. We caught up with Sosa Agin, Rakeem Boyd, and I believe, who's the other one? Cameron Curl. Here's what they had to say. And then next up, we're heading down to Between the Hedges to catch up with UGA Sports on Jake Roos. He's up next. It's On the Hill with Pat Jenkins on KDSJ 479. Back in a bit.
There's another career high for you. Being that why I had the running game going pretty good. What did you think of running game? And then regarding Nick Stark, that was his first start. I guess his redshirt freshman year at A&M. What did you think of Nick's performance? Kind of how the offense, what worked with him in there?
I thought the offense ran well. I thought Nick passing the ball opened up for me running the ball as well. And so the offense was crisp there. There's a few things we have to work on, but just got to finish.
And then just the running game overall.
Yeah, up front, they did a great job, and we just made adjustments and just finding the hole.
Cam and Sosa, it was 30. It was tied up there in the fourth quarter. You had to punt. Maybe last year the team folds after that, but you guys said it's different this year. Talk about it because you got scoring 21-0 to end the game.
Like you said, it's different this year. We bought in, we know how to respond now. Last year we probably would have got down. Everybody would have got down, they would have kept scoring, but now we know how to respond as a team. So I feel like that really help us keep going.
Yeah, it was 34-34 at one point. I don't think it was the fact that we didn't know how to respond. We just didn't know how to communicate. This year, the leaders have been doing a better job of communicating on the sidelines and making sure everybody is tuning in what we need to do and to accomplish the goal that we have set.
Did you feel like it was big for the offense to answer that first score when they scored on the second play of the game? The offense came right back and went down and tied it.
Welcome back. It's our Tuesday edition of On the Hill with Pat Jenkins Sports Talk Radio. And real quick, I want to give a shout out to all our sponsors, as this would not be possible. Lindsay and Associates with an office location in Fayetteville, an office location also too in Rogers. Locomotion, it's located just below the Northwest Arkansas Mall in Fayetteville. Corey Beck's Custom Painting. For anything you need to look good, contact Corey Beck. You won't be disappointed at our newest sponsor and the one that I'm really quite fond of, KDK's Chicken, located at 989 Razorback Road. Go down and see Keith, Kathy, and get a plate of that love. Like they say, it's not your mama. Best chicken in the South. But we're going to continue on with our games of the week. As you know, in the SEC, it just means more, and there's so many good ones every Saturday. So we gassed up and left CSTAT to head down Between the Hedges where we talk Notre Dame in Georgia with our good buddy of UGA Sports, Jake Roos. JR, welcome back to the Hill, my man.
Hey, appreciate you having me as always, Pat.
Let's get off into it. Big ball game as Notre Dame Fighting Irish make their way down to Athens to take on Georgia. It was a close one last year in South Bend, Jake. What are some of the big-time keys that you're going to be looking for once you enter that stadium on Saturday?
Well, I think certainly one of the things you got to consider right off the bat is how it's going to go with the crowd influence. Georgia expecting a record crowd. They put in 500 extra seats for this one. It's going to be an absolutely raucous environment. So how will the Fighting Irish, I guess, respond to that? That's going to be something to watch very closely. And then additionally, how does Georgia contain Ian Book? He's going to be the best quarterback they've faced at this point in the season. And I'm looking forward to seeing how this team has progressed after 4 games. Like I said, Georgia has not been tested a lot to this point. So I'm looking forward to seeing if Notre Dame is going to present them that challenge. And I think this is the ultimate litmus test for really what the ceiling of this Georgia team is.
When you talk Georgia football, especially in particular Georgia offense football, it all starts and ends with that offensive line led by Andrew Thomas. Talk about their importance and how important is it that they establish the line of scrimmage right off there in the first quarter.
Yeah, I think that's a huge key for Georgia in this game. It's going to be interesting to see if a guy like Isaiah Wilson is able to go. He's been nicked up for a couple weeks now. Will be interesting to see how they replace him. If not, they've kind of been rotating in Ben Cleveland, Jamari Sawyer, and Cade Mays kind of interchangeably at the right guard and right tackle spot. So I'm going to be interested to see if he plays, and then if not, how they fill that hole. But it's definitely something that Georgia wants to come out and do, establish the run early, and make sure that Notre Dame knows that this is a very formidable offensive line that's going to try to push them around Sanford Stadium all evening.
Talk about DeAndre Swift. I consider him the top running back in all the SEC this year, and it started last year. It's carried over into the first 3 weeks of his collegiate season. How big is it for DeAndre to play and stay as consistent as he's been, and also too, Jake, talk about the young wide receivers that Fromm has at his disposal, and how important will they be?
Yeah, I think that getting DeAndre Swift and that running game going early is, something Georgia absolutely has to do, and it's something that they've kind of built their identity around. There's no question about that. It's going to be interesting, too, to see how they split the carries. Will a guy like James Cook, find his way into the backfield more this week? Will we see him split out some? He's been kind of used all over the place in that offense. So I'm intrigued to see what they do with Cook this week. And then, as far as those young receivers go, it's going to be interesting to see how a guy like George Pickens factors into this game. They've really put the ball in his hands several times, helped him get some much needed catches and experience in collegiate games, and I think that it's going to be interesting to see how that carries over into a big game atmosphere because he's a guy who is a special playmaker. Dominic Blaylock's another one to watch. Had a big week last week, stepped in, put up over 100 yards, and I think that those guys can be big keys for this Georgia team, not only in this game but moving forward.
Defensively, Kirby Smart being a former defensive coordinator, that's a very, very important part in the philosophy of Georgia football. Talk about the defense led by J.R. Reed, the senior cornerback, and what must they do? Ian Book is probably the best quarterback that they've had a chance to go up against to this point. Talk about what does Georgia have to do defensively on Saturday?
I think one of the things about it, Ian Book's a guy who can get out there and run if he needs to and can bring that element into the game. So I think that keeping the pressure on him and keeping him contained in the pocket is something that Georgia's going to have to make a priority on Saturday. I think that they've got a good shot at doing that. They've got Azeez Ojulari, Nolan Smith, Adam Anderson, Jermaine Johnson, Walter Grant, all at that outside linebacker spot. Guys that can bring the speed, bring the and kind of crash the edge for them. So I think that it's very key there as well. But moving into that secondary, it's going to be interesting to see how JR and Richard LeCount patrol that deep part of the field, control long plays, and then how are their young DBs able to kind of lock up some of these guys? Will Aaron Stokes and Tyson Campbell, rise to the occasion? And will Tyson Campbell be available? He's a little bit nicked up as well. So if he's not able to go? Will it be DJ Daniel? Will it be Tyreek Stevenson? Something certainly to watch there as well.
I know you guys, it's been announced they're having a blackout as the Georgia Bulldogs will be wearing their black jerseys with, I believe the gray or silver pants, as you call it. And that has to be real big for recruiting. Could you tell the listeners, I know, when games like this come to Athens, you'd like if you're a staff to have big-time recruits coming in. Who are some of the guys that our viewers and listeners need to keep an eye out that will be making either an official or unofficial to Athens this weekend?
Well, they haven't officially confirmed the blackout just yet. Kirby Smart hasn't come out. The program hasn't put that out. The fans are pushing very hard for it, so it will be interesting to see. But this weekend, you're expecting, I think, the deepest visitor list that Georgia's had since I've been covering recruiting. It's going to be loaded up. Official visits coming from top tight ends such as Theo Johnson, Darnell Washington, the five-star tight end out of Las Vegas will be here. Five-star linebacker Noah Sewell from Utah is going to be making the trip. Carson Beck is going to be making his official visit. He's a longtime Georgia commit. And then outside of that, you've got the possibility of having guys like Jordan Burge, Keely Ringo also on campus. Both of those guys, five-star players, some of the best in the nation, and they'll be here for unofficial visits. So major recruiting weekend for Georgia. You've got to assume they're going to take all the advantage of that time before the game because they've got up until 8 o'clock to spend with those guys.
Talking with Jake Roos of UGAsports.com. Covers all Georgia football for us here on OTH. Real quick, Jake, we got about a minute and a half. I want you to give me your offensive player and your defensive player for the Georgia Bulldogs, and what will be the final score between the hedges this Saturday?
I think that for the offensive player, I'm looking at Jake Fromm. I think that it's a situation for him where his performance against Notre Dame 2 years ago is really what solidified him into the starter role, something that he hasn't given up since. And so I think that, I look for him to have a big game on Saturday because I think the atmosphere is going to call for him. I think he's going to be called on to make some big plays, and I think he'll be able to deliver on that. And then defensively, I'm looking at a guy like Eric Stokes. I really want to see how he's able to lock down his part of the field. I think this could be a national coming out party for Eric. He's a guy that I think has made tremendous strides over the years, and is going to be, one of the top players in the SEC. Already is, but going to be considered one before the end of the season by many, I think, nationally. So I think this is his opportunity. And as far as the score, I'm not totally settled on my score prediction yet, but the spread is 13.5, and I do think Georgia will cover that margin.
Well, Jake, as always, love having you on. I know you guys have an open week next weekend before taking on the Tennessee Volunteers, but as always, we'll catch up, and thanks for taking time out here on the Hill, my brother.
Hey, I appreciate you, Pat. Thank you, buddy.
That was Jake Roos of UGAsports.com. I want to bring in my co-host as well, Demetrius Johnson. After hearing these two interviews from 247's Jeff Tarpley and UGA Sports, Jake Roos. First, let's talk about A&M Auburn ball game. He made some great points with it being in C-Stat. I too am kind of leaning toward A&M winning this ball game, but at the same time, this is a very formidable defense that Gus Malzahn and the Auburn Tigers are bringing in. I think one of the top two defenses in the SEC ought to make for a good matchup, don't you think?
Yeah, I think it's all on Auburn's offense. If Auburn's offense can come out, put the points on the board, it's going to be a long day for Texas A&M. Because I think with the tools that Auburn has on defense, I think they can dismantle Texas A&M's offense. I haven't really seen any guys that are really big game changers.
Right.
Guys that they don't have those. What was the receiver they had a couple of years? It was number 3.
Oh, Christian
Kirk. They don't have the Kirks like they used to have. They don't have the Traylons. What was the running back name?
Williams.
Traylon Williams. They don't have those guys that used to scare me back in the day. So if just looking on paper, I think Auburn should really take care of this game.
Yeah, because I think that front four, Marlon Davis, Derek Brown, Nick Cole, I think they're going to create a lot of disruption on the offensive line. I think if they can put pressure on junior quarterback Kellen Mond and make it real uneasy for him to make the third down throws, and even some people like throwing first down. I think this is going to be a matchup in the offensive line, their defensive line versus the A&M offensive line. I think it's the biggest matchup in this ball game. Who wins that line of scrimmage on Saturday. Probably going to leave C-Stat with the W, but we're going to step away real quick. Take about a minute, and then we're going to be back to close this thing out. It's On the Hill with Pat Jenkins on KDSJ 479. Let's get it.
Jamario Bell, get him back this week. What's his status?
Well, like I said, Coach will always speak on that. He will speak on that. And yeah, we did. There was a couple of times that we didn't make the adjustment. We checked the coverage, and once we checked the coverage, we're in a bump scheme, and we didn't get bumped. And they made a 5-man surface a couple of times on us, and we knew that and worked on it. And we didn't get bumped enough, and it was alignment. But again, that goes back to coaching. We got to be able to do those things. Felt like we did it enough in practice, but we didn't get it executed. And they were able to make a couple runs, on the edge, we got to be better.
Chad mentioned he thought Jamario would be back. What would he add if you were able to get him back into the mix again?
Well, some maturity, some maturity. He's played ball here, and like I said, I think Coach Caldwell has done a great job with those freshmen. We've played 2.5 ball games with one older guy and a bunch of freshmen. They're growing up, and if you associate them getting to the edge, with those ends, that wasn't the case. As I said last week, is if they get outside of us, it's not always the end's fault. More so or not, it was us not, with our linebacking core and a safety involved, getting the correct bump and how far we had to bump.
Chad said bumpers probably day to day this week. I think the other guy, I guess Hayden and Grant and Fuller all got extra reps. I think those guys did, and bumper isn't able to play. How do you feel about the position?
I feel good. We're always going to take the mentality that it's the next man up, and Bumper's played well for us, and I certainly hope he's going to be ready to go. But if not, it's next man up. It's what we got to do. We're not going to make excuses. That's what I get paid for, is to get the next guy ready to go, and we got to do a good job of that.
Coach, what's your take on San Jose State? What are they?
Welcome back. It's On the Hill with Pat Jenkins Sports Talk Radio. It's our Tuesday edition of OTH, brought to you each and every day here by our gracious sponsors. Lindsay and Associates, with an office location in Fayetteville, an office location also too in Rogers. Locomotion, located just below the Northwest Arkansas Mall in Fayetteville. Corey Beck's Custom Painting, and also to our newest sponsor, and one of the ones, like I said, I'm always fond of, KDK's Chicken at 989 Razorback Road. Go down and see Keith and Kathy and get you some of that love. I'm telling you, as they say, it's not your mama's at all. It's the best chicken in the South. You can get chunks. You can get it all. I'm telling you. Also, too, want to make a note. Want to say thank you to our guests, Jeff Tarpley of 247 Sports, for coming on and giving us the Aggies outlook versus the Auburn Tigers as they host Auburn and C-Stat this Saturday. And also, too, Jake Roos of UGAsports.com. They, too, will be hosting Between the Hedges, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. A blackout, Demetrius. And my question to you is, Saturday night, Club Dub. Coach Morris it was having fun with the young man. I was seeing a lot of fans, kind of berating him for showing such excitement. I know it was Colorado State, but in the world and in times of athletics, that to me was really, really something I enjoyed seeing, because it shows that it's a coach that gets it, and it's all about his kids and how he can connect with today's young man.
I think it's more so finding a way to bridge a gap and find a common celebration. I think Coach is really trying to build a team atmosphere here. Yeah, in some people's eyes, that wasn't a validated win to do something like that. But I think when you look internally inside the organization and what they've been through this year, and this last year and going through this year, I think they need that. They need those type of bonding events to become closer, to continue to build that brotherly relationship and that team bonding experience. So I'm all for it.
I saw a lot of former or future recruits in the 20, 21, 22 classes, that was doing a lot of retweeting of Club Dub. And I think it motivates your team. It's something that they can work toward during the games on Saturdays. It's just that feeling to be able to go back into the locker room and experience Club Dub. Like I said, it's any way a coach can use to motivate his football team, because that's what motivation, it's what football and being a great football coach is you're able to motivate your kids, you're able to reach inside of them and pull out things that maybe they didn't even think they had, for a common goal to work in a team sport. And I think that's what, when you see stuff like that to a recruit or to a fan, I mean, you should, if you go back 3 or 4 years, I mean, this should be a breath of fresh air, because it shows a team that's coming together, that the culture is changing. These kids are having fun playing here at the University of Arkansas and playing for this university and being a Razorback, playing for the fans, and playing in that locker room with those 85 brothers and the 30 or 40 or so extras that are walk-ons, and guys that are all in it together. They say all in, and it's things like that that make a program start to build the type of culture that every fan base, not just here at Arkansas and in the SEC, but every college fan base wants to have a culture that they expect, a winning program each and every year. And I think that's what Arkansas is starting to do. But we're going to get out of here. That's going to wrap up our show today. We want to give a thank you, like I said, to Jeff Tarpley of 247 Sports, also to Jake Roos of UGAsports.com. Want to give a shout out to our sponsors. A big thank you, as this would not be possible without you guys. Lindsay and Associates with an office location in Fayetteville, and office location also too in Rogers. Locomotion, located just below the Northwest Arkansas Mall in Fayetteville, and Corey Beck's Custom Painting. Anything residential, commercial, anything that you want to look nice, contact Corey Beck and you won't be disappointed. And lastly, our newest sponsor, KDK's Chicken. It's located at 989 Razorback Road. Go see Kathy and Keith. I'm telling you, you're going to like the play of love they're going to give you. It's not your mama's, as they say. But that's going to wrap it up for Demetrius, my producer, and for myself, to you listeners. It's On the Hill with Pat Jenkins on KDSJ 479. You guys have a blessed one. Let's get it.